everyone, it's Ed40 here with another hardcore Nuzlocke. This time with Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness. This one's gonna be like my run of Pokémon Colosseum, where I've randomized the encounters I can get in each area for my team using the Cerebi page. Though I'm also allowing myself the first encounter at each Pokéstop too. Outside of that, the main rules are that you can only catch a single Pokémon in each area, there are no duplicate encounters, if a Pokémon faints, they're dead, there are no items in battle outside of held items, and there are level caps equal to each boss's ace. Gale of Darkness is my all-time favorite Pokemon game. It's not always perfect, but it feels like they thought through every part of Colosseum and then improved on them all. It's hard, well-paced and animated, interesting, and a blast from start to finish, so I'm really excited to play it for the first time in around 6 years. And it starts out amazingly. Having Lugia just steal a ship isn't quite the high of Colosseum, but it's so funny. And now you get to go 3 layers deep by watching me play a video game inside a video game. As an aside, Gen 3 really went wild with their pseudo-legendaries, huh? These guys are so cool. So, my character is a kid who lives in a lab, which sounds like the absolute worst way to get any research done, especially with a sister like Jovi, who's the worst! I have to battle Professor Kaminko's aide. I want to say Chobani? He thinks I'm a burglar, so he goes after me with his cracked defense system, a level 5 Sunkern. Good luck stopping any real villains with that team. I get Jovi, bring her back home, and she rewards me by throwing me under the bus to my mom. Worst sister ever. But at least now I get the snag machine. And you know that because I've got it now, we're about to get some shadow Pokemon. But it comes at a price as my father figure gets kidnapped. Thankfully, I get a new teddy bear to keep me company and a shadow Teddiursa that I probably need to pacify first. And we get to go on a day trip to the sea. Though we've got to bring Jovi along. She's so awful, it makes the beadiest-eyed man I've ever seen in my life annoyed enough to fight. Thankfully, a mystery man and his 2 large sons step in and save the day. Hopefully I won't have to fight them in the future. And right after this, I get to the single best part of Gateon Port. Well actually, that's the thoroughly impractical shifting pathways that dominate this town. But, in the shop where I'm supposed to pick up a machine part, I meet this Eevee fanatic. And he offers me one of 5 stones I can use to get any of the available evolutions. Now, this isn't a tough decision. Of the 12 guaranteed Pokemon I'll encounter this run, only my Eevee, Teddiursa, and the Poochyena I catch strolling through Gateon aren't weak to at least one of fire, ground, and rock types. So I'm gonna desperately need a good water type. Vaporeon it is! And with him and my newly caught Poochyena, I can head home to figure out my next steps. And here, my mom tells me I can finally ditch Jovi to go to a Gate Village. This sweet freedom is compounded by the fact that I can finally nickname Vaporeon, aka Poseidon. I also learn around here that Poochyena and Teddiursa both have minus attack natures, but there's not much I can do about that. So I meet up with Egan, who sets up a battle sequence to let me purify them at least, which goes fine. But I get a little jump scare when I learn Egan is my final battle. This scares me because I haven't healed at all, and not only is Poochyena at 5 HP, but Poseidon's also asleep. That means it's up to Teddiursa to solo this. After Pikachu Thunderbolts Poseidon for less than half damage, Shadow Blitz looks like a 2-hit, but Static activates. I need Teddiursa to hit, or else I'll have to sacrifice someone. But he does, and with that, I can finally purify some Pokemon. Now, meet Hades the Poochyena and Dionysus the Teddiursa. I go back to Mount Battle, and hey, didn't they do this plotline in Colosseum? Someone in the writer's room got lazy. Well, I guess now it's onto the Pokemon Lab. And here, a bunch of guys come out to do a security shift, notice me, and challenge me to fight each of them. But what they didn't consider is that I can just run back and forth to a Gate Village to heal between fights as they just chill in the meantime. So, I've got a feeling Cypher could get better personnel here. And after wandering through the lab, I encounter and fight Cypherpeon Solox, who has my next Pokemon. And after digging, biting, and returning through Solox's Ralt, Voltorb, and Bagon, with the help of Hades, who's since evolved into a Mightyena, I'm left with just Numel, who happens to be a Shadow Pokemon, and I catch him to round out my early game team. I purify him and name him Hephaestus. Unfortunately though, I can't quite get him to the cap before fighting Lavrina, but I just so happen to find Professor Crane here. I guess that's a nice enough solace, but let's see what happens in the first real challenge of the run before I get too happy. And Lavrina starts exactly how I hoped she would, with Luvdisc and Beautifly. I lead Dionysus and Poseidon and try to take out Luvdisc with a bite and return. This doesn't quite work, but next turn, Bite gets rid of her. Roselia comes in now, and I use Return on Beautifly, which crits to KO! Incredible! Well, Shadow Delcatty's in now, and I want to deal with him on his own, so I decide to target Roselia. But Delcatty uses Shadow Rush, taking Dionysus to 10 HP! Roselia thankfully chooses to use Leech Seed on Poseidon, so Return connects to KO outright. But I need to switch now, so I go into Hades, who Delcatty Shadow Rushes as Poseidon bites him. I think Delcatty's gonna have low enough health to KO, so I double bite him, but he survives on a sliver, and Shadow Rushes Hades to below half. I'm so glad that didn't crit. I could probably switch into Hephaestus here, but I think I can cleanly outspeed, so with the final bite, Delcatty's down for the win. There's a random data ROM that someone dropped. Weird thing to carry around to just drop after someone else loses a battle, but I guess I'll take it. But there's a new problem now, is Dayton can't analyze the ROM. Your name's got data in it, dude. What are you even doing? But this means that it's time to take my talents to Pyrite for the second time in 2 videos. So let's go! I try and avoid fighting any of the trainers wandering around Pyrite, because the level cap is only 3 levels higher than Lavrina's. So I just go to ONBS and hand over the data ROM after bringing this kid to her mom. I'm really just everyone's errand boy this game, huh? But now I can head out to the PokéSpots. I try and evenly divide up my snacks among all 3 and play the waiting game. While I'm doing that, I kill time by fighting Mirror Bee, and after I win, I get a Mirror Bee tracker, letting me always know when I can hear his theme if I get a craving. But Cypher's taken over the news station. I've gotta beat them back. And after getting rid of this guy who creeps on me through the elevator, seriously, what? I get a notification that the PokéSpots are active, so I bolt there. And after I get my first one, the other 2 activate too. Now, each of these encounters are probably my bottom choice for their respective areas. But I get a Sandshrew named Demeter, an Aeron named Hera, and a Phampi named Eros. I take Demeter and Hera with me, and I finally got a full team for the first time this run. And then, shortly after, I battle Cypher P on Mezen. And here, after getting rid of his Beautifly and Spinarak, he sends out a Shadow Vulpix, who I catch. And at least for now, I decide to use Vulpix instead of Hera, because she's just so weak at the moment. So I'm starting to pack some real type redundancies now. I start training my team up to the cap of level 23. Along the way, Demeter evolves into a Sandslash, who's definitely going to be useful coming up. Vulpix also becomes purifiable, so I give him the name Apollo. Apollo's got a bad plus defense minus speed relaxed nature, but gets Heat Wave early, so I'm counting that as a big win. And now my team's ready to take on Cypher Commander Exol. This guy can be described in one way. Large. Actually 2. He's also big. I lead Hades and Hephaestus against his Loudred and Girafarig. I then immediately switch into Poseidon. Basically what I'm hoping for here is that Girafarig uses something weak before Water Pulse heals Poseidon up. Which happens pretty much exactly how I wanted. Hades gets Girafarig under half with a bite. Now, I make a tiny misplay here and bite the wrong Pokemon. Poseidon thus squanders his Quick Claw activation and hits Loudred instead of the faster Girafarig, who's now able to get some damage off thanks to Shockwave. Hades KOs, but another attack sends Poseidon to half as Mawile comes in. Now, if you've seen my Coliseum video, you might remember how weird the Cerebi Shadow Pokemon encounters list was. And it's still a little weird here. Mawile is actually my next encounter. I get really lucky too, she has Intimidate. But Poseidon can't stay in now, so I've got to switch to Demeter. And remember what I said about how she was going to be really useful coming up? Well, here's her time to shine. And by shine, I mean act as a sacrifice, so I can try to catch Mawile while racking up dig damage with Hades. This tragically doesn't work, and Hades ultimately gets too weak to stay in, so I've got to switch to Dionysus. Though he racks up some serious damage in the process, so now I need to swap to Hephaestus. But finally, I'm able to catch Mawile as Raichu comes in. And as Raichu digs, both of my Pokemon can too, so let's see what happens. Apollo doesn't even do half, so now I'm banking on Hephaestus. Who KOs? Gotta love the adamant nature! Even though hacking was a waste, I'm glad we found out that Cypher's planning an attack on Phoenix City. It's kinda wild though that a news station's heads can code so well. I used to work at a paper, and we could barely use InDesign, let alone code. I guess there are only 6 jobs in the Ore region, half of which are with Cypher, so they probably didn't have a lot of other options. And now, I can add Mawile to the team. Then, it's off to Phoenix City, a beautiful oasis where, never mind, I'm off to play Battle Bingo! And after spending hours of my life on one of the most charming but baffling minigames of the series, I begin to remember something about a plot. Ah, right, Phoenix City. I need to find the mayor, but his housekeeper won't let me search his house for some reason. I'm sure nothing suspicious is up, but let's just give her a CD to make sure. Well, that worked. But I guess Cypher's hatched an evil plan to just replace everyone in the city with their peons, which seems like the least efficient way to get rid of the people of Phoenac, right? Phoenicians? Phoenicians? Anyways, what was this peon doing? I can't imagine getting so distracted by, like, About Damn Time or something, which bangs, by the way, that I let the one person I'm supposed to guard against just do whatever he wants. And she's even got my next encounter, so she really messed up. She leads with Seviper and Snorunt, as I lead with my still Shadow Mawile and Hephaestus. I get rid of Seviper, while Mawile gets some chip in on Snorunt, letting me catch her as I switch Poseidon in. Now my team can just go fully ham on Golbat and Mightyena without much issue. As I leave the mayor's house, I see 6 Justies leave the pre-gym. Who do they even think they're fooling? I'm not gonna believe any of them are real given that they're just all wandering around like that. Though apparently my character is dumb enough to believe that Justy's still around as he immediately goes into the gym after swapping Hades out for Snorunt. And in the first pre-gym Cypher battle, I'm faced with a Kirlia and a Linoon, so I swap Snorunt out for Poseidon, and then Shadow Rush gets rid of Kirlia. Now Poseidon starts whittling Linoon, while Mawile gets to work chipping Shadow Natu, my next catch, and unfortunately, thanks to a crit, Poseidon goes under half. So I really need this Great Ball to work. And it does as I catch Natu! Poseidon then quick attacks to get rid of Linoon. And I've still got one more Phoenac area encounter. The first 2 were listed as the mayor's house and the pre-gym, just in case you were wondering. Mawile becomes purifiable first, so I go back and name her Aphrodite. Shortly after that, so does Snorunt, who I name Kronos, and Natu, who I name Athena after she evolves into a Xatu. And with a quick grind, I'm ready to enter the Phoenac Coliseum for the final early game Cypher Gauntlet. Or well, I would be if Kronos didn't faint from getting ganged up on in a Pirate Coliseum final. I thought he'd be pretty useful for Snaddle, and maybe even Gonzap, so that's a bit of a bummer. But I was mostly just hoping he'd be a backup in case anything happened to my water types. Did I say types? Right, well, as I start the Phoenac Gauntlet, I battle Egrog, who has a Seel I catch. I can't use her for Snaddle, but she's instantly joining the party after this. The battle against Snaddle is always one of the trickiest ones in the game. Making matters worse is that I had to lead with Poseidon and Hephaestus against Egrog. Thankfully, I got through him without them racking up too much damage, but against a Lantern and a Quagsire, they're not exactly a winning duo. I decide a Shockwave probably won't kill Poseidon, so I have him Ice Beam the Quagsire as I switch Hades in on a Water Gun. And then, Quagsire uses Rock Tomb on Poseidon. Huh, I'll take it. Now Lunatone should come in next, so I decide to Ice Beam Quagsire to KO before getting some good chip with Bite. But thanks to the speed drop, Hades outspeeds, making this a bit of a wasted turn for him. On top of that, Shockwave crits to send Poseidon to a 3rd. I need a buffer here, and Lunatone should do. I get one of the clutchest Quick Claw activations of all time to allow Poseidon to go first and send Lunatone to the quarter with Water Pulse, meaning Hades can KO with Bite, preventing Lunatone from setting up Shadow Sky and leveling Poseidon up. And that could have mattered as he survives the next Shockwave at 10 HP. Castform is in now, and without a Shadow Boosted Weather Ball, she's a lot less scary, but I need to figure out what I'm gonna do here. My guess is that both Pokemon are gonna use electric moves, so I swap into Hephaestus, and I'm right. Hades gets a dig off, and then, predicting both Pokemon to use water moves now, I switch back into Poseidon again, and I'm right again! His HP goes all the way back up to 3/4, and Lantern falls to the red. I repeat the process, then Quick Attack gets rid of her, and then Hades starts on Castform. But as Castform falls a turn later, Metang's Thunder Punch paralyzes Poseidon. He can still take another attack, but he freezes up next turn. Metang just uses Metal Claw on Hades though. Thinking I can still use Hades, I decide to just swap Poseidon out for Hephaestus and go for a flinch, but apparently just crits. I'm not complaining though. Snaddle runs off, and what an absolutely unhinged way to run. And now, I swap Apollo and Hades out for Athena and Seel before finally letting all the hostages out. And after getting my scooter submerged in some sand, I go purify Seel, who even with an awful plus speed minus special attack jolly nature is gonna be clutch, and I name her Persephone. Then, I find out this old man and his granddaughter are looking for a bonsai. I just remember that when I heard Bonsai and Munchlax were in this game, I was so excited, only to be completely let down after I learned I couldn't use them in-game. I get why they didn't have them playable, but what a waste. Anyways, I head on a bit of a fetch quest to upgrade my scooter, though it'd be nice if one of these actual adults could just drive me. This ends up with me battling Chobit, who's pretty easy, but he and Professor Kaminko decide now is the time to unleash Robo Groudon. And he is so silly. That thing's as tall as I am. Am I supposed to be afraid? Kamingo decides to scrap the Robo project. A pretty smart move, honestly, because I can't stop laughing from the first one. I make it to the desert, and wow, it's the missing ship. Cypher's here though, so I've got to fight before I can marvel much. And as I'm fighting this peon, look at how tiny I am. That's the door, right? Can I even reach it? One huge positive of this fight is that at the very end, Dionysus levels up and evolves into an Ursaring. That's gonna get me an obscene amount of extra power now. Or well, it would if not for disaster striking. It's time to wrangle up Bonsai. But, one problem. To give you a peek behind the curtain, I've been recording using OpenEmu on my MacBook for almost every video I've made, which has been great except for this game, which has caused me more nightmares than I could have ever imagined. On top of crashing literally dozens of times, OpenEmu's lack of input sensitivity here means that I can't physically grab the bonsai, meaning I can't progress in the game at all. This has to be the most insufferable reason I've ever had an attempt end. And after taking a while to seethe about it, and I mean 3.5 months long, I start Attempt 2 in Dolphin instead. And there's some changes in Attempt 2. Outside of names and natures, the biggest is the PokéSpot encounters. While I get a Phanpy from the Oasis spot again, this time naming her Demeter, who promptly faints to Exhole. I get a Zubat from the cave, who I name Aphrodite. Then, finally, I find a Gligar from the rock spot, but I accidentally KO'd her! That's a shame because she'd have been so useful. But after 3 months of seething about my reset, I can finally use a GameCube controller to make it past Bonsai. This one roadblock helped cause the most massive delay this channel's ever had, and I'm just grateful to finally move on. But as I celebrate this win, I get jumped by Team Snag'em Grunts, who knock me out and steal my snag machine. There's truly no resting here, huh? Mr. President, get down! Also, look at how ridiculous Helios the Ninetales' flamethrower looks here. Possibly the goofiest attack I've ever seen. I have to go to Outskirts Stand, where I ultimately beat down Mirror B in order to meet up with Hordal. This guy used to be with Cypher, but he's on our side now, which is pretty cool because he gives us a Shadow Togepi. Now this Togepi isn't my Outskirts Stand encounter though, and that's actually Zaprong, the Elekid Hordal trades me once Togepi is purified. She has a solid plus attack minus defense lonely nature, and she's immediately hopping on the team. Going to the Team Snag'em hideout is so funny. Obviously they wanted to reuse the scenery from Coliseum, but I love that Team Snag'em just refused to rebuild or even clean up for literal years. And while I'm here, Zaprong evolves into an Electabuzz for a big damage boost. And after destroying the President, it's time to fight Gonzap. Except, I forgot to switch my party around and heal. So my team's pretty beat up by the time I get to him. Also, Zaprong and Cronus both level up to 33 in the battle before, but since there's no pause in between, there's nothing I can do about it. Gonzap leads with Electrode and Nuzleaf, as I lead Cronus and Zaprong. I swap Cronus out immediately for Dionysus, who gets faked out and paralyzed instantly, though with Guts, that's not that much of a bad thing. Fire Punch gets rid of the Nuzleaf and Gonzap sends in Vileplume. Next turn, Dionysus takes some more damage from Electrode, but is still above half thanks to leftovers, and then Vileplume survives a Fire Punch to just use Sweet Scent before Electrode gets KO'd by Return. Whiscash is out now, and after Vileplume faints to another Fire Punch, just uses Rock Tomb on Dionysus, which is such a waste with Paralysis, as he responds with another Return KO and levels up. It's just Skarmory left, so I swap in Helios the Ninetales, and with one Thunder Punch, Skarmory is in the ground, Zaprong levels up, and I finally got my Snag Machine back. Then, at Cypher Key Lair, a place that admittedly zones me out until the final few moments there, Hephaestus and Hera the Seel evolve. Following that, I battle Cypher Peon Locke, who has a Shadow Beedrill who I catch before sweeping the rest of his team with Cronus and Hephaestus. But now, it's time for Gorgon. He's probably the scariest Cypher admin for my team right now, because he has so many Pokemon with Earthquake. It takes me a while to plan out a strategy for him, but I think I've got one. I lead with Dionysus and Zaprong. Gorgon kinda works similar to Raihan in Sword and Shield, where his Pokemon are designed to function in pairs, though he has a little more switchability. Basically, he likes to protect with one Pokemon and use Earthquake with the second. To prevent Zaprong from taking damage, I need to take out the Earthquake Pokemon. So I use Thunder Punch on Celio as Lairon protects. Celio survives on a Sliver, so Dionysus finishes her with Metal Claw. No attack boost though. Slowking comes in, but now it's time to take Lairon down, as a Cross Trap and Brick Break connect for the KO and Dionysus levels up. Slowking just uses a weak Water Pulse on Zaprong, as Gorgon's Ursaring comes in. But now, I think it's time to get rid of Slowking. Even though Ursaring's attack is higher, he's the one with Protect for some reason. So a Thunder Punch and Return combo get rid of Slowking, and Zeprong levels up now. This means Gorgon sends in Primeape. I decide to just take care of Ursaring first. The Shadow Rush hits Dionysus hard in the process, but now it's just Primeape and Hypno. I feel like Hypno's gonna be tougher, so I target her, but both Primeape and Hypno outspeed Dionysus. I can't believe they both survived on a sliver. That's incredible, but I have to switch. At least Dionysus KO'd Hypno. I decided to go for my bulkiest Pokemon left, and I send in Hera and Hephaestus. After Hera takes a weak-ish Shadow Rush, she tanks another in the red with no crit, and then Surf and Flamethrower combine to get the KO. And with that, we learn the real final boss of the game. It's the old man who saved us at the start. Who could have ever expected this? And after Professor Crane takes me into his man cave to nab his rarest collectible, Beedrill's purifiable, so I go and name him Hermes. He's going on the team in the place of Kronos. And it's time for the final gauntlet now, Citadark Island. This stupidly edgy island is where I'll have my final battle with Greevil, though not before fighting all the bosses again first. And speaking of, the first one, Lavrina, catches me totally by surprise. Thankfully I'd healed at least. I lead Hermes and Hera, which is scary because her Gardevoir can land super effective damage on both. I decide to just try and take Gardevoir out immediately, and Hermes lands a Twin Needle to do over half and poison. Then, Hera outspeeds to KO with Ice Beam. That's a huge relief. I switch into Zeprong and just Ice Beam the Roselia, who falls instantly. I then decide to just Thunder Punch Gorbis for the KO, and then Ice Beam the Shadow Farfetch'd, but she survives on a sliver. Well, let's try that again. This time, I have Zeprong get rid of the Farfetch'd and let Hera take care of the Shadow Altaria for the win. Crisis averted. But after only a tiny trek, I run into Snaddle. This time, I'm prepared. Now, Snaddle's team is a little stressful because of how strong his Starmie and Quagsire are. I really wish I had more against water types, but I just kinda have to grin and bear it here. Snaddle leads with Metang and Quagsire as I bring out Helios and Hermes. Helios instantly KOs Metang with Flamethrower, bringing in Caesar as Hermes uses Agility. Quagsire mudshots Helios, but he's still over half, so one more Flamethrower does the job on Caesar after Hermes uses Sword Sands. But now, Solrock is in. I have to be a little careful, so I swap Helios for Hera, and Baton Pass to Dionysus. Now, I just focus on Solrock, and get rid of them with a Metal Claw and a Surf to bring Castform in. Quagsire hits Hera with a Mudshot, bringing her above half. I decide to get rid of Castform, and a return lets that happen, bringing out the Starmie, but as Shadow Sky sends Hera under half, I know I've got to switch her out. I don't want to lose my best and favorite Ice type, but the rest of my team either doesn't have enough health, or is weak to Quagsire, or both. I decide finally that out of everyone, Hephaestus is the most expendable, so I swap him in to take the hit. But Dionysus outspeeds! He takes Starmie out with a single return. Quagsire hits him with Mudshot too, so this was totally safe. And with that, another return takes out Quagsire, and I can move on. Just 4 major fights left. And the next one is terrifying. Ardos has so much speed and bulk that I even have to excuse the fact that his mouth looks like that. I decided to bring Poseidon in instead of Helios for this fight. Let's see how it goes. To start, Ardos' Shadow Swallow sets up Shadow Sky, as Alakazam hits Thunder Punch on Hera. But then, Ice Beam KOs Swallow, and a return from Dionysus takes out Alakazam too. But that brings in the worst group of Pokemon, Kingdra and Heracross. I have to swap out, so I bring Hermes in for Hera. I actually get super lucky here, with maybe the best turn I could have had, as Heracross Brick Breaks Hermes, and Kingdra misses Hydro Pump. But it's not enough. Return keeps Heracross alive in the red. But what I don't realize in the moment is that this is even better for me. Now, Hermes can outspeed to KO Heracross, before Dionysus can KO the Electabuzz who comes in, who I really didn't have an answer for. It's just 2 Pokemon left as Shadow Snorlax is up. And I'm terrified of this one. I just try to take them out fast. I use Sludge Bomb and return. But Snorlax survives, and Shadow End ends Dionysus for good. I am so upset. He was my strongest Pokemon, period. I don't know what I'll do now, but I have to push on. I bring Poseidon in, who Water Pulses Snorlax away for revenge, as I swap out Hermes for Zeprong. Poseidon takes a double edge above half, and then Zeprong and Poseidon combine to work Kingdra into the ground. But what an awful battle. I can't believe I have 3 more boss fights to go still. And after Greevil locks me out of the final boss battle, I guess I've got to take on the next one. Now, Gorgon thankfully uses the same strategy as last time. So that lets Zeprong and Poseidon target Slowking with Thunder Punch and Bite respectively. Then, when Aggron comes in, I have Zeprong cross-trap Gorgon's Ursaring, leaving him in the red, as Water Pulse crits to get rid of Aggron. Though it probably didn't matter. Slash brings Zeprong under half, and activates Static, which is bad because Ursaring has Guts. Fortunately, he just protects next turn, so I focus on KOing Walrein. Except she ends up surviving both attacks, but does flinch. So now I just clean house, bringing Shadow Mr. Mime and Poliwrath in. Mr. Mime's the big threat here at the moment, so I have to focus on her. Thunder Punch just does a third, as she uses Shadow Storm, bringing Zeprong to a third, but Poliwrath just sets up Shadow Sky after Mr. Mime takes a bite on a fifth. But I need to switch Zeprong out, so I go into Helios, though Shadow Storm and Shadow Rush combine to instantly bring him to the red. But no worries, as Bite KOs Mr. Mime. Now I just swap Helios into Hephaestus, who gets hit with a Shadow Rush below half. I'm left just fishing for flinches with Poseidon's Bite, and I feel like I need to try to get something in with Hephaestus, so I go for Dig. But Poliwrath outspeeds and Shadow Rushes Poseidon for the KO. I wasn't expecting that, and I probably should, but it's brutal to lose my starter here. He was a great boy. And from here, I'm not really sure what I was doing. I send in Hera, hoping Ice Beam will freeze, I think, which it does on its second turn, but neither it nor Dig does very much, so that freeze was exceptionally lucky. And with that, Poliwrath stays frozen as 2 digs and a couple more Ice Beams get the job done for the win. I've lost 2 Pokemon in my last 2 battles. I'm really struggling here. The last 2 boss fights are going to be really tough. Eldez is next, and his team is just stuffed to the brim with heavy hitters. Basically, any Pokemon you thought looked cool when you were 8 is on his team, and they can all do serious damage. As I play this game longer, I realize type matchups don't matter as much towards the end because basically every Pokemon can hit you for super effective damage with their Shadow, so bulk becomes way more important the more you progress. But while Eldez is terrifying, I actually get an idea that I think might make this fight a little bit easier. I lead Hephaestus and Apollo. Basically, I have to target Eldez's Manectric and leave his Ninjask alive, which while rough, can't hurt me nearly as much as anyone else. Ninjask digs while Manectric sets up Shadow Sky, but this just means I can cleanly set up Wish while Hephaestus KOs Manectric with Earthquake. But the big bad is in now, Salamence, and she's my final encounter of the run, but the price for getting her is steep. As I target her, Ninjask does some serious damage to Hephaestus with Dig, and Salamence's Shadow Rush does the rest of the job to eliminate him for good. Rest well, bud. At least now, I can send in Hera, who I can now start chucking balls with. After a turn of lowering HP, I catch her. This is gonna be great after the fight, but we've still got a ways to go for that. Eldez sends Flygon in now as I set up Wish. After a Silver Wind from Ninjask, Giga Drain lets Apollo get some health back, while Double Edge from Flygon sends Hera to the red. But here, she can Ice Beam Flygon away to bring in Marowak. I swap Hera out for Helios as Ninjask goes for Silver Wind, doing a little under half on Apollo. But a Giga Drain on Marowak gets that right back. Apollo goes for Heat Wave, but Ninjask digs first, so this just brings Marowak to the red, allowing Apollo to sop up the last of his health with Giga Drain, bringing out Lapras. Dig connects on Helios to bring him just over half, but Heat Wave brings Ninjask to a sliver, and with a Giga Drain, Lapras is at half. He sets up Shadow Sky too, KOing Ninjask without my help. Thanks! This lets Flamethrower and Giga Drain KO Lapras for the win. And with that, it's just Greevil left. I put Salamence in my party, who I named Zeus, which isn't really a gender-conforming name, but gender's a construct anyways, so I'm rolling with it. I also level everyone up to the cap of 50 before going up for the final fight. After getting some new moves on Zeus, plus a Shell Bell, this is my final team. Let's see how we do. On top of possibly the largest dungeon ever in a Pokemon game, I face Greevil, and immediately Master Ball his Lugia. That'll show him! But Greevil's a big threat. On top of having a team of all Shadow Pokemon, he's also got the 3 legendary birds with him, so I've got to be careful. I lead Hera and Zeprong. What's nice is that he leads with his Rhydon and Moltres, so I target the latter with a Thunderbolt and have Hera surf both Pokemon. This goes off without a hitch. Except for Moltres critting Hera with Shadow Fire. That's bad, but she thankfully survives in the red. I thought that might have been because of Thick Fat, but it's actually because it's only 75 base power. But this just means that Greevil's second set is in, Executor and Tauros. The Intimidate drop is rough, but I'm just targeting Executor anyways. My goal now is to just do as much damage with Hera as I can while she's still here. After a Fire Punch and an Ice Beam, Exeggutor's out and Articuno's in. All Tauros does is just set up Shadow Sky, meaning that this is Harrow's last turn regardless. Thunderbolt sends Articuno to half, as Surf takes off about a quarter of health each. Articuno uses Shadow Chill, sending Zeprong below half, and because Tauros uses Shadow Hold, Shadow Sky is the one that takes out Harrow. Sleep well, Dugong. You'll always be a star in my heart. But this lets me send out Helios, who KOs Articuno with Flamethrower as Zeprong cross-chops Tauros. This brings Zapdos in, but here's Zeprong's time to go. With a Shadow Rush, Tauros KOs him, bringing an end to one of the greatest, most versatile Pokemon I've ever had in a Nuzlocke. Rest in peace, Zeprong. I send out Hermes and go for setup, as Heatwave KOs Tauros in revenge. Get him, buddy! Shadow Bolt leaves Helios in the yellow, so I set up again with Hermes and Flamethrower Zapdos, who survives in the yellow, letting them KO Hermes with another Shadow Bolt. So many deaths in this run so far, but I won't let them be in vain. I send out Apollo, who outspeeds and Psychics Zapdos away for the win, beating Cypher once and for all. I just beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness. And wow, this game is still so good! I'd never seen a hardcore Nuzlocke of it done before, and even though I lost half my Pokemon, it was so rewarding to see it done. This might actually be the single hardest game to Nuzlocke in all honesty, as opponents can hit you super effectively and have great team synergy as you go. But it was really fun trying to build teams that could even hope to take these fights on. And I'll probably never get over the fact that of all the challenges I faced this Nuzlocke, the one that derailed me for nearly half a year was just catching this Bonsai. And that's a wrap. Please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see me do, leave a comment, at me on Twitter, or email me with your suggestions at ed40plays@gmail.com. Next up is the run that I've probably been most excited to do for the last year and a half. Catch you all there!